Right.
So the trigger awakens an old belief inside of us, even inside the standard. It's, for me, it was, like I said, you were critiquing me. I'm not enough. I'm failing at this. It's okay. For me, having people really like whether it's a project I've done or just anything that I put effort into, having people validate me and say, "Oh, that's really cool. I like that." I really feed off of that. I would feed off of that quite a bit. And so if you're making a suggestion, right away I'm thinking, okay, there's something she sees wrong in it. It's not, instead of, man, that is so awesome. It's, well, why don't you do this? It's like, oh, great. That's not the response I need.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you for joining us on Before the Vows. My name is Robert, and this is my lovely and beautiful wife, Monica.
Hi.
In this video, we want to talk about the prodigal shame cycle and some of what goes on, 6 points during this shame cycle, and how shame can intensify or almost come back twice as bad during a return. And we'll talk about triggers, internal collapse, escape responses, how shame returns during their time as a prodigal, and what breaks the shame cycle. So most people think prodigals run because they don't care, and they put on, it's like we put on a front, but you're not, the standard's not aware of it, but we're not doing this because we don't love you. Even though I might call you, words, names, and say I don't love you, or never have, or we should have never been married, things that we've talked about before. But that's not really what we're feeling. We don't know what we're feeling. So we're going to talk about some of those. But the truth about all that, it's far deeper and far more painful. Prodigals don't run from the standard. They run from shame. And shame is this invisible chain that's, you could say, it's around their heart, and some of the triggers, and we'll get into those, will just bring them back to that time of being inadequate or not enough, or they couldn't meet their caregiver's expectations. And so again, it's something that's holding them. And what we do is we just want to bring awareness to that. And so you have a target to pray for, so that the Lord can break these chains and they can identify themselves now with Christ. Eventually, that is the goal, right?
Right.
So it's the voice within them that tells them that they're unworthy, they're unlovable, they're beyond repair. And these are things that I can remember, maybe not these specific words, but things that I would think about within myself. Like, something's wrong with me.
See, and I never knew that. Like, I never would have thought that you were thinking those things.
Yeah.
I pretty much thought you were very confident in yourself, that I was like holding you back, that I was the one that, that it was me. Yeah. Because you were, like you've said it before, you were confidently telling me you didn't love me.
I had to hold on to those. I wouldn't say they were lies, but they were what I was pushing for, the narrative I was pushing for myself, for my own safety, emotional safety.
Right. But also what and honey, I don't know if it's if you're already going to mention this, but to start off with, when you say that it's not, that they're not running from the standard, but kind of a little bit.
Yes.
Also, because the Lord showed me what I did contribute, because we always talk about it, what I brought in, but it's going to show up in our marriage. It's going to show up in relationships, your childhood,
right.
What you felt, what you dealt with then is going to show up in our marriage.
Yeah. It's not you. It's what you're reminding me of.
Absolutely.
So it's not you personally. It's everything that the wounds that you have just happen to be my triggers, and vice versa.
Yes.
The wounds I have happen to be your triggers. So we're not saying that just the prodigal has triggers, because so does the standard. They just come out differently. Right?
Right.
And so today we want to walk you through the prodigal shame cycle, the emotional loop that keeps them stuck and distant and afraid to, like, come home, or if they're in home, afraid to just open up emotionally. And once you understand this cycle, we hope that you'll understand your spouse in a way that you never have before. And we've seen some comments and some standards say that they understand their spouse a little bit more because of the attachment styles. Maybe this is something that they've never really um, knew about, or
Uh-huh.
they did, but now they see it in action
Right. Well,
with both of us.
yeah. And what I want to add to that, because I know we're talking about the
Hmm.
prodigal, but the stander is now seeing themselves, is now the Lord is now showing me what I was dealing with from childhood that I didn't know, that
Yeah.
I didn't understand.
Hmm.
So, yes, helping me better understand you, but also better understand me is
Right.
what the Lord is doing in
Yeah.
all of it.
And it's not an accident.
Mhm.
We believe that the Lord is leading many of you all to channels similar to ours to understand this, but also see God. The most important thing, to see God behind all this,
Mhm.
the one who can bind up our wounds, to heal the brokenhearted,
Yeah.
right? So the first thing we want to talk about, and I want to go into depth with this one. The other ones I'm going to kind of skim over, but the trigger is the number one part that I want to talk about, and I think it's really important. A biblical example of triggers, when you look in Luke chapter 22, verse 61 and 62, when the rooster crowed, Peter was triggered by that reminder of his failure. Jesus looked at him, and instantly the old belief surfaced. So what Jesus had told him that he was going to do, that when the rooster crowed, that shame kind of set in once he did what, when he denied Jesus,
Mhm.
and that's what caused him to run.
Mhm.
And that's a biblical example. And when you look at prodigals, things like that can also be a trigger. So the shame cycle always begins with the trigger. A trigger can be a conversation, a responsibility.
Mhm.
It can be a reminder of failure, like Peter, seeing your pain, emotional closeness, or even sometimes God is tugging on their heart
Mhm.
and they can feel that conviction. It's less of a trigger, it's more of conviction. But the first thing is just a regular conversation. And just throughout this week, I think you made a suggestion, and you make suggestions, I see them as critiques,
Yeah.
and still do.
Mhm.
It's how we respond to them now.
Mhm.
So I was trying to remember what we were talking about, and you had mentioned something, and I took it as you were critiquing what I was doing, and almost like you're there like a school teacher, taking notes what I'm doing wrong.
Mhm.
I'm not having that visual, but that's the feeling I
Mhm.
got.
Yeah.
And you may not have, that
Right.
wasn't your intent,
Right.
but that's
Mhm.
how I took it.
Yeah, and I
Some
think
small things. Sorry.
sorry, I
No.
think that I automatically talk that way to you.
Hmm.
Like I automatically am like, "Honey, why don't you do blah blah blah?" Or like, "Why don't you try to maybe if you do this or
Yeah. And I'm
and
thinking like,
yeah, and it could be something like so simple, but that's just I guess because I'm trying to fix something,
yeah.
that's where I automatically go to.
Hmm.
And I do catch myself kind of slipping into that again sometimes. It's not big things,
Hmm.
but I do catch that because I was so used to fixing things or trying to fix things and
Hmm.
trying to take control of things that I do see that come up often.
And it's important for me, for you,
Hmm.
for me to communicate that with you and
Hmm.
say, hey, Mona, I, I felt like you were
Yeah.
critiquing me. I'm not trying to, but I felt like your suggestion was more of a critique. And I said this, I forgot what we were talking about, but I told you it's not you, it's
Hmm.
me, but I'm letting you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
So you're aware of it. And I'm just, this is where you can't be offended by me just being
Right.
honest,
Right.
because if you were like, well, that's not how I meant it.
Yeah.
Well, then here it goes again. It's like, okay, well, next time I'm just not going to be
Right.
open about my emotions.
Hmm.
And
Which is like either way is not the right way to go
right,
about it
right, right.
because
But
we.
it's working through these
Hmm.
things and understanding
Yeah.
ourselves. For me, understanding myself better,
Right.
and for you also understanding me, and
Hmm.
vice versa. Right.
Well, I think the fact that you even bring it to my attention and say it is a step better and closer because before we would
I
just
would have
bottle it
never.
all in
Hmm.
and we just like wind up resenting
Yeah.
each other.
And all those thoughts are just going through
Yes,
your mind,
right.
like,
Hmm.
she was so mean. I can't believe her.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
right.
the trigger awakens an old belief inside of us,
Hmm.
even inside the standard. It's, for me, it was like I said, you were critiquing me.
Hmm.
I'm not enough. I'm failing at this. It's okay, for me, having people really like whether it's a project I've done
Mm-hmm.
or just anything that I put effort into, having people validate me and say, "Oh, that's really cool. I
Mm-hmm.
like that."
Mm-hmm.
Mm, I really feed off of that. I would feed off of that
Yeah.
quite a bit. And so, if you're making a suggestion, right away I'm thinking, okay, there's something she sees wrong in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, instead of, man, that is so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's, well, why don't you do this? It's like, oh, great. That's not the response I need,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So it can be that trigger.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and I was going to say the reason it's hard for me, or probably a lot of the anxious attachment styles is because we don't function off of that.
Right.
Like we're just like, you could probably tell me the exact same thing that I say to you, and it's not going to affect me the same way it does
Mhm.
you.
Right.
Or I'd be like, oh, okay.
Well, and to flip the
Hmm.
script, we could be mid conversation, and I'm like, hey, hold that thought. I'm going to go do something real quick. You
Hmm.
might feel some rejection, maybe abandonment, if I'm not going to sit there and talk
Hmm.
about something that,
Hmm.
or if you're telling me something and I'm trying to listen, but because it's so much for me at that point, I might be like, okay, this is a little overwhelming for me.
Right.
And then you'll say, what do you think? And I'm like, about what? That could be to you,
Right.
well, he's not paying
Right.
attention to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
little things like that. And it's
Yeah.
not that I wasn't paying attention to you. It's just, it could be that it was so much of your
Yeah.
emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is that basically still in this place, you're still going to go there.
Hmm.
It's recognizing it and talking it through. So especially being at that place where we're just prodigals are
Hmm.
barely coming back and standards are trying to learn how to be, it's still going to be there
Right.
when reconciliation happens, but we are working through it now, at least the communication and realizing where it's coming from,
Right.
for sure.
And this is going to be applicable for no matter where you're at in your stand. If
Hmm.
you're at the beginning stage, in the middle, if they're returning,
Yeah.
there's
Right.
contact. If there's no contact, you're gearing up for that,
Hmm.
trusting and believing God that there is going to be contact or an email. You'll know how to respond. So this is
Yeah.
applicable throughout your stand.
Right.
So again, it's, to me, it's, I'm not enough, or this is where the cycle begins. The shame triggers in the prodigal what activates their shame and causes them to withdraw. The shame triggers are those moments that awaken the old wounds, or when you scratch, I don't, the scab,
Hmm.
it peels it back. Our son doesn't like that word, so that's why I didn't want to say it. But
Yeah.
it's when you scratch that scab and you start bleeding again. That's kind of what it is. That's what a trigger does, right?
Hmm.
So that trigger, it's the moment it awakens the old, or peels the scab back,
Hmm.
and that's usually from childhood, most commonly from childhood. But you can develop trauma later on in life, and that makes the prodigal feel exposed, defective, unworthy. Those are the feelings that I would get in your critiques or your
Hmm.
suggestions, right? I'm sorry.
Hmm.
So these triggers don't create the shame, they activate what's already inside. Prodigals don't respond to triggers logically. Most of the time, we respond emotionally, often with withdrawal, avoidance, escape. Many times I wanted to stop a conversation with you, but I didn't want to be totally rude and just walk away.
Hmm.
I wanted you to stop talking. So
Hmm.
I would go to great lengths to try to get you to do
Hmm.
that. So yelling, being nasty with my words.
Hmm.
If I felt you were critiquing me or suggestion, I would have said something else, because I can't take that.
Hmm.
I can't sit there and hear you say, well, remember when you did this, and or you didn't do this. I would have been like, yeah, well, remember when you did this.
Hmm.
I can't sit there and hear me, I'm wrong, I'm deflecting.
Right.
So
Right.
that's again what happens there. So 10, or we're going to talk, I think, about 8 different core shame triggers. One of them is emotional closeness. Closeness should feel good, but for a prodigal it often feels dangerous. Why? Because closeness exposes their fear, their insecurities, the unhealed wounds, their belief that they're not enough. And closeness triggers the fear: if you really knew me, you wouldn't stay.
Hmm.
If you really, that was the biggest reason why I didn't tell you about my childhood. because if I was, not that you were going to leave me, but you were going to think differently of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that. I needed you to see me the way you just mentioned, confident.
Mm-hmm.
If you saw me another way, oh my gosh, it was going to, I thought, destroy me,
Mm-hmm.
just emotionally and what I was trying to project. And that's one the biggest reason why I didn't say anything about my childhood. So it was just that thing, that thought that you were going to look at me as broken,
Yeah.
not who you thought I was,
Mm-hmm.
right? Number two, seeing your pain. This is another trigger, and we can talk about this. We addressed this during our live. Prodigals cannot handle. It's hard for us to handle
Mm-hmm.
the weight of the pain they cause when they run, or when they see you hurting. They feel a certain way, and it can be with kids.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to see your children. You don't want to talk to them
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to let you know, look at what you've done. Look at who you're running
Right.
from. When I confessed everything to you, even towards getting towards reconciliation, you cried. And I told you what? When you were crying, and I told you, Mona,
When you said I can't do this,
yes.
yeah, yeah. When you said I can't do this, this is too hard. I can't do this.
Oh, no, 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 no. When you were crying, and I said, Mona, I need you to get up.
Oh, that time,
Yeah.
yeah. You said I can't see you this way. I need you to get up.
Yeah. And I wasn't thinking about, I just gave you all these emotions,
Mm-hmm.
all this, I confessed everything. And I'm not even thinking about the pain you're in. Not
Yeah.
that
Right.
I was more worried about, Mona, I can't do this without you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
But you're not
really,
saying that because you don't know how to say that.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for the standards. It feels so unfair. It's
Yeah.
very difficult, but your prodigal needs you. But God equipped you for this.
Yeah, he did. He
God
did tell
gave
me that.
you, not that he was going to remove the pain,
Mm-hmm.
but he gave you the tools to help overcome the pain
Mm-hmm.
through him,
Mm-hmm.
through seeking him,
Right.
through his word, through his promises. And so it seems like I was being heartless and I didn't care, but no, I was like, I want to fix this, but I can't do this without you.
Mm-hmm.
That's how weak I was.
Yeah.
I would have never wanted to. Here I am thinking, I don't want to confess my everything that I've done, um, everything from my past that I experienced as a child. I didn't want to confess this because I want to keep this image. Now I've confessed everything. I need you. I
Mm-hmm.
need you now more than ever before.
Right.
I need you to be strong for me,
Mm-hmm.
even though you're hurting
Mm-hmm.
much worse than I am.
Yeah.
In in a different way, I guess you
Yeah.
could say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now exposing all of these wounds,
Yeah.
and I open up to you. So yeah, there's a lot in that.
Well, and I'm gonna say is that the Lord prepared me for that. He was preparing me for everything you
Hmm.
were gonna come at me with. That's why he was healing me and teaching me how to be with you, because you were gonna everything was gonna come out.
Yeah.
And it was the Lord that was giving me the strength to endure everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. And so seeing you emotional like that, and this probably the same for many prodigals, especially the ones with the anxious attachment style,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, the avoidant,
Mm-hmm.
the disorganized, they're going to have this feeling where they're going to feel the guilt, they're going to feel the failure, the responsibility of everything that they've done, the unworthiness.
Well, I wanted to say, honey, one of the things is anger can come out too. Like anger, it can look like you're angry at me or the stander
Hmm.
because you can't handle the feelings that you're dealing with.
Right.
So that's one of the things also, because some people will be, because I would be breaking down crying, I would expect you to, because that's how I function. Why don't I see you breaking down crying? Why are you getting mad at me? Like
Hmm.
that's what the stander is gonna think.
Yeah, and there's different emotions in it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's still pain, but your pain is everything I've done to you.
Yeah.
My pain is rooted from my childhood that I'm now willing to confront.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different pains, different wounds, and I'm the one that's caused yours. So you don't understand why I can't sympathize or empathize with you,
Mm-hmm.
but because you haven't caused mine.
Right.
Mine came from my childhood, but we're both in this deep emotional, being vulnerable with each other,
Yeah.
just broken, two broken people. And it's like, wow, that's why the standard, you had to anchor yourself to the
Mm-hmm.
Lord, because if you weren't, your reaction would have been totally
Oh
different.
yeah.
Yeah, get
Right.
out of my house. I don't want to talk
Right.
to you. I don't
And
want to
I
see
would
you.
not be here.
Hmm.
Right.
We wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here.
Our kids would. Who knows what our kids? We wouldn't be able to talk to our relatives and friends about this. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's why it's bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
It's bigger than us.
We wouldn't have this for the
Yeah,
grandbaby
yeah. This is our little
cage.
cage for our grandbaby, so he could sleep. So these things triggered the belief in the prodigal that I'm the reason you're hurting. I'm the problem. Well, I am the reason you're hurting, but it also makes me see myself as, sure enough, I'm broken. I am the problem.
Mm-hmm.
My caregivers were right in telling me that, whatever. They weren't sitting there telling me I'm the problem, but as a result of what I experienced and what most prodigals experience, they were the problem. And now this is almost confirming it. So
Yeah.
seeing you cry and broken because of what I've done,
Mm-hmm.
it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
It's, now I'm dealing with my wounds, but also the shame in what I've done.
Yeah.
So instead of comforting you, I did stay there. I wasn't comforting you, but I could have retreated. I could have left, but
Mm-hmm.
we were at a good place. You were safe enough for me where I could tell you, Mona, I need you to get up. I need you. Instead, I didn't say we need to walk this out together. I needed you more
Mm-hmm.
because I just exposed myself, my wounds to you,
Mm-hmm.
everything. I was vulnerable to you for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
I needed you. And it seems very unfair, but yes, the prodigal, sometimes this is why they would run again.
Mm-hmm.
So number three, being asked to talk about their feelings. Prodigals often grew up in homes where emotions were either ignored, punished, mocked, or just unsafe. So when you ask the prodigal, what are you feeling? Can
Mm-hmm.
we talk about this? It triggers panic,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know how to name these emotions. So they escape the conversation. I didn't know. I was never using words like being vulnerable
Yeah.
or emotionally mature or immature. Now I use that language, but in those times I didn't know how to express what I was feeling.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because that's one thing I'm just remembering right now. When we were in reconciliation, or as you were coming closer to me, I would ask you, because you were just quiet. A lot of times you were just kind of sitting there. You were quiet, and I'd be like, "What are you thinking of?" Or like, "What's on your mind? Do you want to share what's on your mind?
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay? Is there anything you want to talk about, or what are you thinking right now?" That's what I would ask you.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord told me to stop. Like I
Mm-hmm.
had to stop doing that because again, he would remind me, you were in your process. When I was in my process, I kind of had time alone,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was with the Lord and I was alone. When you're in your process, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the way, like I'm there.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to give you your space, because the Lord was telling me to, and allow you to go through your process.
Yeah.
Because I thought you coming back, oh, things are great now. We're just going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't that way.
And now you're facing your fears all over again
Yeah.
of being rejected right then and there. And
Mm-hmm.
you're asking me questions and I'm not giving you clear answers. Here you go. You're having to face those. You might fear the abandonment. Oh my gosh, he's shutting down. He's not answering me. Is he thinking about something else, someone
Yeah.
else, a different situation? Is he going to leave again?
Yeah, it would all those would come, and then I'd have to like just go. I mean, I obviously was in prayer all the time,
Yeah.
but then I would go and read the word and read my journals, and the Lord would just, okay, just another moment he'd give me
Yeah.
to keep going.
Yeah. So number four is responsibility or expectations. Even small responsibilities can trigger shame, because responsibility awakens the fear of I'll fail again, or I can't meet your expectations. I'll disappoint you again. So they avoid responsibility to avoid the shame. Number five, conflict or tension. Even in the questions that you're asking me, that can lead to some
Mm-hmm.
tension or some conflict because I don't want to talk about them. So
Right.
even mild conflict, that simple question or those questions you were asking me can feel like conflict to me because you're telling me you're trying to pry into my emotional
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability, and I'm not willing to
Mm-hmm.
expose myself when it comes to my emotions at that time, right?
Right.
So even the mild conflict can feel like a threat. So conflict triggers the childhood wounds, the fear of rejection, fear of being wrong, the fear of being exposed. So we shut down, withdraw, and run.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the possible outcomes if there's some kind of um, if those triggers are there, they're going to shut down, avoid, run. Maybe they don't run, outside the home. Maybe they just go to their room, or they just shut down emotionally and just shut everybody out. And this is what we see in many of the standards. They not in the standards, but in their situation, they'll say they don't talk to the children. They're not
Yeah.
at that point where they can talk, and
Right.
it seems so weird, but our children remind us of it's. I have to look at my kids and realize I've caused a lot of this
Mm-hmm.
damage, and now I have to repair it. But in my time as a prodigal, it was hard. It was difficult. It hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It hurt. The last people anybody would want to hurt is their children, and that's where the Lord was changing you to view me like one of your
Mm-hmm.
kids. So, but initially, you don't want to hurt your kids.
Right.
You would do anything for your children,
Right.
and those were the ones I was hurting
Mm-hmm.
on top of hurting you. So. Um, Number 6, feeling controlled or cornered. Those questions you were asking me, very innocent.
Mm-hmm.
I could feel that as being cornered.
Yeah.
And what that does for prodigals, we're extremely sensitive to anything that feels like pressure, demands, interrogation. I would always tell you that. Why? I told you that a few times throughout our marriage. Why you always have to interrogate me?
Because
Always,
I'd be like, because you're not telling me the truth. Like I
right?
wanted everything to like make
Mm-hmm.
sense, right?
Right.
Like this doesn't make sense when you. So but I still wasn't getting the truth, even if I was
Yeah.
trying, to
And
do.
I'm saying insane. Why you're always interrogating me? I'm saying just believe my lie.
Yeah,
Stop asking me. Just believe my
yeah, and
lie.
I'd be like, is he for real? Like, really wants
Yeah.
me? But like, you could make it a whole thing where I walk away crying because like you've what do you say, you've deflected and
Mm-hmm.
like you've turned the whole thing around on
Yeah.
me, and that's how it would
Yeah.
be. Mm-hmm.
And it's because I just didn't know how to handle all those
Mm-hmm.
emotions. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's not fair, but it helps to
Right.
understand.
It absolutely has helped
Now
to
looking back,
understand.
it helps us
Mm-hmm.
understand. And then now, when we go to those moments of being triggered by a comment or something like that,
Yeah.
we know what it stems
Mm-hmm.
from. So emotional intensity. So this triggers the belief that I'm trapped. I need to escape. That's why we run. So even a gentle question can feel overwhelming if their shame is at a high point. And those times when I was coming back were when I was in well, my shame was always there. Anytime I came home, if I could, I would put a bag over my head and walk into the room.
Really?
Yeah, I felt like I couldn't, I wouldn't do that
Yeah, but
literally, but
I
if
guess.
I could put something here,
Yeah.
if there was a hallway where I would just walk in straight to the room and walk out,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing if my kids were there
Yeah.
or our daughter-in-laws, yeah, I would have preferred that,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't have to face that.
And you don't, and we didn't see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you just want to leave us to go, and probably in that time that is what you're thinking. I just want to leave them to go do what I'm doing. But we're not thinking there's shame behind that.
Yeah,
We're not thinking he doesn't want to see us or see them on the way out, like that you're, yeah, that there's more underneath that,
right.
beneath that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're just thinking like, wow, he really just wants to go do what he wants
he
to
doesn't
do.
love us.
He doesn't love us.
Yeah,
We're not worth it, kind of
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
and I just didn't know how to love you all.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So even again, those little gentle questions can, if our shame is at that point, can trigger us. Number 7 is moments of conviction when God begins tugging on our hearts, and it's not going to look like oh, I'm going to repent, drop to my knees, and for me, like I've said before, it was getting in those moments and realizing how dark of
Hmm.
a place that I was in. So the tugging on it can trigger shame before the repentance, and it did trigger that. In part of it was realizing, why am I here? What am I doing here? God, make a way for me to get out of
Hmm.
this. And so we feel exposed and unworthy. I wouldn't say I was afraid to face God. I didn't want to face God. I wouldn't say that I was afraid to face you. I didn't want to face you. But there is some fear in that. So the conviction, it's good,
Hmm.
because when that's the first time I cried out to the Lord, and I didn't want anything to do with seeing the word, hearing anything about when you had told me who I was in Christ. I didn't want to hear those things.
Yeah.
That was the first time that I had cried out to God in months. And it was the beginning of the breaking for me. Is it I guess it was conviction. It was just realizing where I was at, the darkness that I was in. So number 8, memories of childhood wounds. Many prodigals carry emotional neglect, abandonment wounds, perfectionism. We see that with people who bury themselves in work. Um, Me in my woodworking projects, wanting to iron out all the little details. And then I remember watching a video on YouTube where one of the woodworkers that I follow would say, don't worry about these small imperfections. That's what makes your work unique. And it's not like a major, you don't want to put a drawer upside down. Oh, that's my work. It's like, it might be something that I would look at too closely, and it's something where it's wood.
Yeah, and sometimes you would point that out. Like, I'm like, honey, they're not even going to notice that, and you're like telling them what it was, or that's kind of how
Yep.
you tend to be.
And so again, the fear of disappointing others, the fear of being too much, anything that reminds them of those wounds triggers shame. This is why their reactions seem bigger, like pouting, than the moment actually is. So we can kind of blow up and make things bigger than what they should have been. But it's those triggers again. Number 9, sometimes it's just feeling your love, feeling your kindness. This is one that we really feel like, why? Why, if I'm telling you I love you, how does that trigger you just being nice to me? How does that trigger you? Well, sometimes your love can trigger the shame because they feel like, I'm unworthy of your love. I'm unable to reciprocate it. I can't give it back to you. Like when you would tell me you love me, I didn't want to say it back in return. Like sometimes it was part of it. Sometimes we're just afraid that we'll ruin it. Like I don't want to testing the waters. I don't want to get in there and then I'm going to do this all over again. Something's wrong with me.
Yeah. Well, and I think that a lot, and probably you in the beginning, really did think maybe I really didn't love her. I don't know. Maybe you did feel that, I think. But I think a lot of prodigals probably truly feel I really didn't love her, especially depending on how the stander was as well. Right? Because I think a lot of us standers probably think I was a good wife. I did a lot of good things for you, and I didn't do this and I didn't do that. But I know for myself, I was disrespectful. And so that could make you not feel loved by me.
Yeah.
So.
And that was probably your way of trying to get my attention. And that was your cry for help and your cry to get my attention. So yeah, that's why it's really important to understand our own emotions and our own wounds, so we understand our triggers. So love feels like pressure when they don't really love themselves. And that was, again, part of projecting who I was. Not that I wasn't that, but it's really trying to keep this image so that my childhood wouldn't rear its ugly head. Little did I know it was rearing its ugly head,
Right.
regardless.
And again, you did not know that that's what it was. Because some people think, well, you knew it was your childhood. No, you did not know that that's what it was.
Yeah. And sometimes, not often, but small moments of success or even progress, when even positive moments can trigger shame, because success awakens the fear of, I can't keep this up, or I'll fail eventually, or I don't deserve good things. So we sabotage the progress to avoid future shame. So the big truth behind all of this is shame triggers. The shame triggers don't mean the prodigal doesn't care. It means that the prodigal is wounded. And again, we didn't know this during the time, but we recognize this outside of that. So the shame is not about the moment, it's about the memory. It's not about the conversation, it's about the wound beneath it. It's not about you, it's about their identity. But also with you, it was you knowing who you were in Christ before you really didn't. You had your own, you could say, identity,
right?
Not crisis, but issues. Knowing who you now, anchoring yourself to the Lord and His promises, His word. Now you start realizing you're a child of God, you're a daughter of God, you're a chosen generation, you're a royal priesthood. These
Yeah.
the promises that are in His Word. You start taking that on, so your identity is now starting to be anchored in the Lord,
Hmm.
and that's really important for the stand. So when you understand their triggers, you stop taking their
Hmm.
actions and reactions personally, and you start seeing the broken child inside
Yes.
the adult who's running, and
Hmm.
that's something you saw.
That's exactly what the
Mhm.
Lord showed me.
And you stopped asking, and we've said this several times, instead of what's wrong with you, what happened to you.
Yeah, because I used to always say, like, what's wrong with you? Or what's wrong with him? Or why is he like that?
Hmm.
And yeah, just in my stand, the Lord was showing me all of that.
Yeah, yeah. So those are all the triggers, and the triggers that we've addressed, and I think they're pretty common with what standards deal with, and
Mm.
hopefully it brings some understanding. But the next thing is the internal collapse. With Adam and Eve in Genesis chapter 3, verse 7 through 10, after they sinned, Adam said, I was afraid, so I hid. It happened in the very beginning of time. They ran
Hmm.
because of what they did. So after the trigger comes the internal collapse. This happens. So this is where the shame floods their nervous system. They feel exposed, defective, overwhelmed, like a disappointment. Um, they can't face you, their children, family, people they love, and they definitely can't face God. And this is in those moments, instead of like you're feeling these emotions and trying to suppress them all the time. If I had just taken them to the Lord, but even then there was shame in that. So
Hmm.
it's really a difficult thing. But this isn't rebellion. This is emotional collapse. It's the inner voice that tells us that you deserve better than me. Um, and what we think about the standard. I ruin everything.
Hmm.
Like I just can't meet your
Hmm.
expectations. I can't fix this. So this collapses the heart of the shame cycle.
Well, I was going to say, I remember telling you that one time.
Mhm.
I don't know if you remember that, but it's when the kids called us when our daughter-in-law was pregnant,
Mhm.
and they were going to go to the hospital because something was happening.
Mhm.
And I remember in that moment, I was so emotional. And then you came behind me, and I just turned to you and I was crying. I said, "You've ruined everything." And I just cried, and you like followed me to the room. But I remember saying that to you, so I can't even imagine like what that did to add to the shame you were already feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, of
Yeah.
course, in that moment, we even prayed. You prayed. Do you remember that now?
I don't.
No.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So you prayed with us, right? We prayed together. But you were still doing what you were doing. But you had all this shame, and then for me to turn around and tell you that,
Yeah.
because I was just so emotional with what was going on with the kids and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways,
That's
yeah.
that's tough. That's tough. I mean, clearly it's tough for you, but also for for anybody to hear that.
Hmm.
It's pretty difficult. It's a reminder. It's like telling you, like, here, look, you're right. You're
Hmm.
not good enough.
Right.
You did ruin everything.
Right.
The other thing is the escape response. So when shame becomes unbearable, prodigals do what all humans do. They escape. They escape. The escape looks like silence, withdrawal, avoidance, distraction, getting on my phone, playing a video game,
Hmm.
going to my room, getting on the phone, going to the garage, starting a project, just
Yeah.
consuming your thoughts. It's numbing, running to someone or something else, not because they don't love you, but because they feel too broken to stay present. An escape is our attempt to silence the shame.
Hmm.
Temporary relief. Whenever they run, whatever they run to, it gives them a moment of relief. And this is what I started finally realizing that I wasn't seeking peace, I was seeking relief.
Hmm.
And that's what I was running to, relief. Because there's really no peace in that. It's just relief. I'm in a place where I'm comfortable, where I can my emotions can my nervous system can regulate, I can just calm
Hmm.
down. So it's seeking that relief. And for a moment we feel distracted, validated, in control, comforted,
Hmm.
but it never lasts. And this is the point I want to stress with every standard. Excuse me. It does not last, because they can use scripture, to try and validate what they're doing and they're going to misquote scripture and say, well, God's okay with this. No, he is not. Um, they can try to make themselves feel validated, but that wound is still there, and it's never gonna last. Being in that moment of what they feel is relief, eventually it's gonna rear its ugly head again. It'll pop up. So the relief is shallow. It's temporary. It's a bandage on a deep wound. And when the relief fades, this is where the shame flood returns even stronger. Now the shame comes back with like a double force, because now they feel shame for the original issue, the escape, and now the distance, and now the damage that they've done to the children, and the hurt that they've caused, and the choices that they've made while running. And this creates the belief that I've gone way too far to come back.
I remember you saying that.
And sometimes we sit in it longer. You can say it's pride, but it's really shame behind that. It seems like pride, but there's so much shame in it that they come off as prideful. That we come off as prideful because we want to stay in that relief, and maybe because there's more reminders in front of them, through text messages, through emails, through phone calls, or just showing up time to time. It can be. And there might be where the prodigal goes home and does some work around the house. This could be a way for them to cope a little bit, because they feel this sense of achievement. Like, okay, I'm repairing things, and maybe this is the start of something towards reconciliation.
Well, would you say that could be like staying connected without commitment?
Yes,
right?
Definitely
staying connected, like to kind of still be around. And I will say too, honey, I believe from what we're learning about the attachment styles, the avoidant is more than likely going to be the one who's coping with a bunch of addictions and stuff, right? That's what we kind of learned, the disorganized, right? The anxious one probably is one who more so wants to be around the kids. Because the avoidance, I feel like they just disconnect. They disconnect and cope with a bunch of things. But the anxious ones, because I see myself as the anxious one. And had I done it, it was, I could still be present for the kids, but I just didn't want to be with you because you hurt me. You weren't giving me attention. So I'm seeking attention from somebody else. But I see like that's kind of more how the anxious works a little bit differently.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So again, this creates that belief that they've gone too far, and the cycle begins again. So the cycle, what it looks like is the trigger, the internal collapse.
Sorry, I try not to laugh.
The internal collapse, escape, the temporary relief, the stronger shame, and repeat. It's just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. This is why prodigals seem hot, cold, close one day, distant the next. They're love bombing. They're pulling away. They're not confused about you. They just feel trapped in this cycle. They're confused about themselves. It's that identity crisis, and it's really themselves. They just can't admit to it. We're not in a place where we can be vulnerable and say, I really messed up. I need help. And that's why we've said before, I never wanted to seek counsel, because I didn't want my shame to be brought up in what happened to me as a child. So I kept that to myself and never really wanted to get to that point. But once I came back, I was willing to.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's very important that as the stander, the Lord was using me, the stander, for you
to help break that cycle.
And that's what's important, is that not that I played a huge role, but the Lord was using me to get this out of you, to do all of this.
Yeah, because what we had tried to do before was never working. So it's like, okay, I gotta perform some open heart surgery and really get to the root of it.
And I had to do this, right? With the Lord. But that's how important it is for the stander to remain.
So we're going to ask, the stander will ask, so what breaks the shame cycle? And the shame cannot be broken by pressure. It cannot be broken by logic. It cannot be broken by arguments. Shame is almost always broken by, I'm going to name 6 things here. Safety. Shame cannot survive in an atmosphere of shame can, yeah, it cannot survive in an environment with emotional safety, which
Mm-hmm.
is huge, huge. Again, didn't recognize it then, but seeing, looking back now, I know that's why I was willing to confess everything, because
Mm-hmm.
you were so safe with me, or I was so, yeah, you were my safe place. I was so safe with you. And we have heard where, well, I've done this, and my prodigal's just not, what's going on. Well, there might be some deeper wounds. There might be some other triggers around there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's the children. We've seen where the children, it's unfortunate, but the children are deeply wounded by this, and they want nothing to do with the prodigal sometimes, and that's a hard thing to face. So
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different variables in that shame that might make it harder for the prodigal to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at John chapter 8, verses 1 through 11, the woman caught in adultery, Jesus created an emotional safety or safe environment by saying, neither do I condemn you. Safety breaks shame.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where that's the same heart posture that the stander needs to take, right? Is not condemning. It's hard. It's hard not to say, well, why did you do this to me? And
Mm-hmm.
you don't deserve me. I've been so good to you. But what were the triggers that caused all that? And we're not trying to point blame at anybody, but there's something there that caused all this to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So taking that heart posture, as Jesus did in John chapter 8, verses 1 through 11. Number two is grace. Grace disarms shame's accusation. You were so gracious in, part of it was when I would come home the next day, or that same night, and I smell like alcohol or whatever else. You're making my coffee. You're making my, that was really just, you're just being such a loving individual. And that also played a big part in it. Number three is slow rebuilding. It's
Mm.
not going to be a quick turnaround. Shame
Right.
needs time to unwind.
Mm-hmm.
Number four, identity restoration. Prodigals must rediscover who they are in God. And Gideon, with Gideon, the story of Gideon in Judges chapter 6, verse 12, Gideon saw himself as weak. God called him mighty warrior. And this this is truly where we have to, the stander needs to anchor themselves to the Lord and see who they are in him, not what they've heard from their prodigal,
Mm-hmm.
not all these
Mm-hmm.
stories that they just lived with their prodigal, saying that you're not pretty enough, or I never loved you, or it was only because of the kids I stayed with you.
Yeah.
But when you see who you are in the Lord, it's
Yeah.
like, no, this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's not based on my life, all these false accusations, all these
Right.
lies that the enemy was throwing at me, the accuser.
Right.
So it's just this
That's it.
process is,
That, oh, sorry.
no,
That,
no,
no,
no.
it's a huge shift in
Hmm.
the standard when you do start realizing who you are in the Lord.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's for both of us. This is where
Right.
the identity crisis here
Mm-hmm.
is just chaotic. Yours is a little bit more stable, but it's still.
But the thing is what was really hard for myself is because I did have my time. When you're coming back, it's kind of like I want you to be where I'm at. I expect you
Yeah,
to be kind of where I'm at
right.
already.
Yeah.
And I remember that was really, really hard.
Hmm.
I think in my stand, I was pretty good. And then when you're coming back, and you actually had even thought about moving in with your parents because it was kind of getting a little rough because you were trying to focus on not dealing with your shame. And I don't think you had attempted or you had mentioned counseling yet.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, you were still dealing with a lot. And
Hmm.
I was kind of getting in the way there.
Yeah.
And the Lord had to really deal with me.
Yeah. Number five is gentle pursuit, not pressure, presence,
Hmm.
just being there.
Hmm.
And lastly, God's voice over their own. Only the Father's voice can silence the shame. And this is
Yes.
where maybe it's the word living through you,
Hmm.
through the
Yeah.
stander, that helps to dismantle or silence shame.
Hmm.
What you were doing, I was no longer hearing how I was a bad husband, a bad father, a bad Christian, a bad leader, a bad, whatever that you would tell me. Now it was just the light that was shining through you was silencing the shame that I
Hmm.
was, living in.
Mhm.
So the heart of this message is the prodigals don't stay away because they don't love you. They stay away because they don't love themselves many times. They don't love where they were as a child, where that wound took place.
Mhm.
And so shame convinces them that they're unworthy, they're too broken, they're too far gone. They can't face you, they can't face God, but God specializes in breaking shame cycles. And when shame breaks, this is typically when the prodigal
Mhm.
desires to want to come home.
Mhm.
And that was so important in our stand. And you were, of course, allowing God to work through you. You were so pivotal in um, that process beginning. And so, one, I want to thank you for standing, as difficult as it was. And we
Oh,
want
not
to
a lot.
thank every one of you standers
Mhm.
for standing. And I want to say this: you might think that my stand is not perfect. I'm messing up. I was thinking about the Navy SEALs and the videos that I've seen of them training, and one of them that I've seen is they'll have like six of them, maybe more, but they're holding this log above their head after they've done whatever they've done. They're wet, they've got their full gear on, and they're holding this log above their head. Well, they're not holding it with a straight face and their arms locked, their elbows locked and perfect, right?
Mhm.
They're struggling.
Mhm.
That's all the instructors want to see. They want to see them hold that log
Mhm.
above their head. They don't care about the struggle. In fact, it's almost like they want to see the struggle.
Mhm.
They want to get them to that breaking point where they want to struggle, where they want to see them struggle. They just want to see them with that log above their head.
Yeah.
It's not going to be perfect. It's not, you can get six of the strongest men who haven't done anything all day and lift up that log. That's going to be
Mhm.
a perfect view or
Right.
how you're going to hold the log. That's not the case with standers. So don't think your stand is going to have to be perfect. It's going to be rough. You're going to have your moments. You're going to have your ups and downs, the roller coaster, the spiraling, um, getting the getting into your feelings at moments. But it's really just standing. It's standing every morning, getting up out of bed and saying, God, today I give you my yes.
Yeah. And like I said to that, when I did go before the Lord with Lord, I can't be perfect. I remember thinking, I can't do this, God. I cannot be perfect and do this because that's what it felt like I had to be. And immediately he says, I don't expect you to be perfect. I expect you to be obedient. So being obedient is what we need to do. Because when we're not being obedient, we are sinning. And that is what the Lord was showing me, is that I was sinning against him. I'm looking at you and you're sinning, and I'm not okay with it, but it's okay that I'm sinning against the Lord when he's
Yeah.
speaking directly to me.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we have to work towards.
That's good. Good word.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mona.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, we thank y'all for tuning in and watching this video. If again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through email. We are working towards getting our meetings organized and filled and meeting with you all. But until we do, if just feel free to reach out to us through email, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. God bless you. We love you. Bye bye.
Bye.